Like a lot of cities in America, Seattle's seen a sharp rise in crime. I think the homicide rate is up 50%, or maybe just the numbers over 2019. To what do you attribute this increase, and how are you addressing it?
You know, we are seeing this. I have the good fortune of talking to mayors from across the country regularly, and we're seeing this in all the major cities, and there's a number of root causes to this. One, of course, is the access to guns. We're seeing more guns on the street than we have historically before. So we have to really cut off that supply to guns. Second is coming out of COVID, there's a whole range of things that have led to the increase in violence and desperation. And then we look at the underlying reasons people are turning to some of the criminal activity and really working with community, because those solutions to those have got to be community based to a certain degree. So I'm meeting with regularly now communities that are most impacted by this violence to figure out community based solutions to that. We are just about to roll out an unprecedented number of investments in alternatives to policing and interventions into anti-violence programs that are community-based and have trusted messengers that we hope really can help reduce the violence.
I noticed also that the City of Seattle Police Department has lost some number in its ranks in the last year, the sixth or a seventh. I didn't do an exact calculation. What can a mayor do to fill those ranks back up, and what are you doing?
So we are hiring right now, and we're working very hard to hire. We lost a lot of police officers, a record number in the last 18 months. A lot of that is around a number of factors, but part of it was associated with the uncertainty in jobs, with the push to cut the police department by 50% in the city of Seattle by our city council. We're able to stop that, but we're in the process now of really reimagining what does the job of a police officer look like? What are the best things, the most important things you need an armed response to, and what are some alternatives? And I think, Michael, what's really interesting is if you sit down with police officers and community organizations, you'll find a lot of agreement that some of the jobs that officers do today belong somewhere else. And so how do we make sure that just as we're recruiting police officers, we're also making sure that they're not the first that have to show up to every crisis call? Now, Seattle police officers responded to almost 17,000 crisis calls in 2019. When those happen, so much else in society has already gone wrong. We need to get upstream, fix it, and have alternatives to those responses.
What might some of those roles that can be transferred to a different kind of responder be? If you can
so we've got a great example. Yeah, we got a great example here. We found when I came in, we looked at the calls and we saw a huge number of calls that police officers went to were to people who were in crisis that were either experiencing homelessness or what we call low acuity. The only alternative the officer had was either to arrest them or try to take them to a hospital. We instituted a program called Health One, which is like Medic One, which rolls up when there's a heart attack. It's a firefighter medic with a social worker. They can respond, work with the person to determine what really do they need to stabilize and what's the best response. Obviously, they won't need it. They don't show up when you do need an armed police officer if there's any sign of violence. But it's been so effective now that we've tripled the program, and we will be increasing it throughout the city, so that we know that there are times when that if you have a health-based response to these kinds of calls, you can actually save money, save police officer time, and do more good.
Do you find that the department or the officers in the department are responsive to this kind of a handoff on those kinds of encounters? What's
Absolutely.
the reaction?
We've gotten great buy-in, both by the community served by this, but also by police officers, fire department, and by those folks who also respond, our service providers, because everyone understood that there can be a better way for some of these calls, which end up being very time intensive. Police officers know sometimes they're not the best response, but there was nobody else to come. And so if we have these alternative responses, it frees up our officers to do those jobs where you really do need a police officer to come.